Butcher of Basra here, and this is my third commentary video for Napoleon Total War. This is a 1 versus 1 on the Prussian Hills map. I'm in command of the Prussians, and my opponent Cirriss is in command of the Russians. Over here you can see my army, and I've put up my build up here on the screen. Cirriss was playing as Russia, but ironically he had no unicorns, and usually when you're up against Russia they tend to bring unicorns. That's the reason why most people play as Russia, because their line's not really that good. And you can see his build up here on the screen as well. Now the match started with both of us trying to take control of this hill right here. There's only one big central hill in this map, and in my opinion, and obviously in his opinion, control of this summit, if you like, is absolutely vital because it gives you a distinct height advantage. And remember, units fighting downhill have a much bigger advantage than units fighting uphill. And over here I'm rushing in 2 Lancer units. They're going to hide in this small forest, and hopefully I'm going to be able to spring an ambush on any of his units that come in range. Now if you pay close attention to the mini-map in the top right corner, you can see that I've deployed as far right to my deployment zone as possible. And this is mainly because I wanted to take control of the hill on the right side. And my opponent Cirriss, on the other hand, deployed his army sort of in the middle of his deployment zone. So only the units on his far left were able to sort of rush towards where I'm rushing. The rest of his units weren't in position, or they were just too far to make it in time. And this gives him a big disadvantage because I can move my entire army to the top of the hill. Whereas if he's gonna take his army, if he's gonna take any units to where I'm going, it's only going to be part of his army, and I can outnumber him if he decides to do that. And seeing this, he decides to pull back, and I now have the hill. Now something else I've seen a lot online is that whenever there's like a race to the top of a hill, people tend to like rush all their cav to the summit and sort of try and intimidate you so that you'll stop your advance. If someone tries to do this to you, don't be intimidated. Just keep rushing your line and rifles up. And if he decides to charge you, all you have to do is push back your rifles, get your guys into square, and he's going to take a shitload of losses with his cav. And that's not a very good idea to rush your cav onto the top of the hill, unless if they're like, mounted gunners or something, where they can actually fire on the advancing troops as they're going uphill. And again, my plan is to overwhelm one of my enemy's flanks, and this time it's the left side of his formation. And over here you can see I've pretty much secured the hill. I'm not exactly on the summit because I don't want to take any unnecessary losses before I can return fire with my howitzers. But on my right you can see I've got 4 units of line and 2 units of lancers to support them. Seeing that my howitzers are just about to get into position, unlimber, and start firing on his lines, my opponent's going to swing around 2 of his heaviest cav over here, and these guys are going to try and launch a sneaky attack into the rear of my howitzers and try and take him out. But I guess my opponent forgot that I had 2 Lancer cav units just to the left of my howitzers, waiting for anyone to come so that they can ambush them. And my howitzers are finally unlimbering, and they're just about to start firing. And remember, when you use your howitzers, you should always use your targeted fire ability, and that increases their accuracy by 40. And if you use your general's inspiration ability, you can see that star on my right howitzer unit, that was my general inspiring them, that increases a howitzer's accuracy by another 10. So potentially, if a Prussian howitzer, which has an accuracy of 35, uses targeted firing and the inspiration ability, it can push up its accuracy to 85, giving it some pretty deadly accuracy. And over here you can see I targeted his 2 heavy cav units on his far left. And I've taken out quite a few of his men. And he's seen this, and he's going to pull them just out of range of my howitzers. And remember, howitzers are much more effective against cavalry than line infantry units, especially if the line infantry units are really spread out into thin lines. So if you get the chance, always try and aim for his heavy cav and expensive units. And obviously if his artillery is in range, try to take that out before he can take yours out. And if you can't get his artillery or his cav, go for his general. Actually, I'd go for his general first. And if you still can't go for his general, then target his line. You don't want to be attacking Jaegers or any sort of unit in skirmish mode, because they're really spread out, and the chances of you doing a lot of damage is very minimal. Anyway, I continued to bombard my enemy's line infantry units, and he couldn't return any fire with his 12-pounder foot artillery. So he has to attack me now. And not only is he going to have to attack me, he's attacking me uphill, which gives him a severe disadvantage. He pushed up two of his line infantry units over here to try and attack my skirmishers, but my skirmishers, who have superior range, opened fire first. But because of the tricky terrain, they're going to start firing straight into the hill, and they're not actually going to be targeting his line, and his line infantry units are doing the same. One way to get around this is to zoom in right down to their level and see if they can actually see the enemy, and if they can see the enemy, obviously they're going to shoot them. If they can only see, like, grass, that means they're not going to be able to get any shots on them. And at that point, I just asked them to stop firing at will. Now my bombardment of enemy lines continues, and Cirriss realizes that he's taking quite a lot of losses here. His artillery can't really return fire because of the defilade that the hill is offering my units. So what he's going to do is he's going to move these two heavy cav units he swung around my far left to try and come up into the rear of my howitzers and take him out. But you can see here my two Lancer cav units are still hiding in that forest, and they're gonna spring their ambush as soon as the heavy cav units are in range, and then I'll just zerg him with my remaining cav units and take those two heavy cav units out of the equation. And at this point, Cirriss is finally fed up of taking unnecessary losses due to my howitzers, and he's going to charge his two units of cuirassiers behind my lines and try to go for my howitzers. And it's pretty obvious he's totally oblivious to the fact that I've got two Uhlans hiding in that forest just to the left of his cuirassier, and those guys are just going to spring out of nowhere and attack him with flank and rear, pin him down, giving me a chance to just completely surround them with cuirassier from their front. And I'm also going to bring a unit of Brandenburg Uhlans to come into their right, and that way I've completely surrounded them, and I'm just going to slaughter them. And at this point, Cirriss is fed up waiting. He's just going to push up on my right flank with some of his musketeers. But obviously I have the height advantage, and I also have my skirmishers just in front of my line infantry units forming a double line of battle. So I have superior firepower as well. And you can see that my enemy's two cuirassiers have been totally swamped. And on my far right flank, Cirriss tried to push up two more units of cuirassiers to try and go for my howitzers, but I've intercepted them with a Lancer unit, and I'm going to move up a line infantry unit to support that Lancer. And on my left, I finish off his two cuirassiers. And the battle at the top of the hill is going in my favor, obviously, because of the height advantage and superior numbers. And you can see his far left flank is going to start to collapse, and this is going to allow me to push up on him and fold in on his center and finish him off. Meanwhile, that unit of line infantry that I moved in to support my pinned down Lancer is going to start opening fire on his cuirassier, and he's totally forgotten about these two units of cuirassier that went for my howitzers, and they're just going to stand there and be shot at by my musketeers. It's just like a firing squad. On my left flank, Cirriss is moving those two units of line infantry that he was trying to engage my skirmishers with earlier on, and he's going to try and pop up in my rear over here on the hill. But obviously I saw that, and I'm going to counter that maneuver with some cav. Meanwhile, I've come down off the hill on my right, and you can see that the Russian center is pretty much disorganized and faltering, and I'm just going to mop up, really. You can see here on the left flank he's trying to organize two units of line to fire up on my skirmishers and line infantry units, but as they're just getting into formation, I'm just going to pepper them with some fire. And at this point I had to edit out about like a minute from the battle just to make it under 11 minutes. But the two units of line that were going around to come in my rear finally made it, but to his surprise, my cav, which is pretty much intact, is going to charge him. Actually, he's going to charge my cav downhill. Fair enough. But Lancer cav has insane charge, and even the very good melee stats of Russian units, Russian line, isn't going to do very good. And as you can see, I'm going to charge and retreat, and he didn't even bother to put them into squares. And at this point, my opponent Cirriss is pretty much finished. I mean, my main battle line is just completely wrapping around what's left of him. My cav is finishing off his units of line up on the hill, and he doesn't stand a chance, really. let's see. Over here on my very far right, two of his light infantry units have come back from routing. And believe it or not, one of them is melee charging me with really crappy morale.
Our men are
So I'm just
running
going to get a
for us.
couple of shots on him, and then I'm going to return the favor.